Hello and welcome back to Femme Tarot channel. I'm Natalie, and today I'm very excited because I have a guest that was on this channel 2 years ago, over 2 years ago, and this was in the middle of the pandemic where we met and we had a very interesting discussion. And that discussion was on altered states, lucid dreaming. But today she's back because we have other things to talk about and to celebrate. Because I love to celebrate people that I appreciate all their achievements, to celebrate the publication of her new book, which came out, I think, on Tuesday. Tree Carr is with us. Tree is just a light being. She's just so fabulous and so busy. She's got so much going on in her life. She is an author of 3 books. She is a TEDx speaker. She is a dreaming guide, a death doula. We do talk about what death doula is on the previous video, which will be linked down below, as well as all her information and details. So if you want to reach out to Tree, please go ahead, because she teaches courses on tarot. She teaches courses on psychedelics, altered state. There's so much going on. So I highly recommend that you head on over to her website and check out what she does. Also, last but not least, she's certified in psychedelics, altered states, and transpersonal psychology. And this is what we're going to be talking about today in this video. I want to talk about psychedelics, which is becoming such a hot topic. It's hit the mainstream media now. A lot more people are talking about the benefits of psychedelics and hallucinogenics and how they can help people heal from trauma. And also, aside from the psychedelics, I want to talk about spells and rituals, because that's that's what her latest book is all about. It's called A Spell a Day, 365 Easy Spells, Rituals, and Magic for Every Day. I was sent a copy of it. Well, the hard copy is still not here, but luckily I got the PDF copy. And you guys, you know me, I don't dabble into to witchcraft or spells, but I'm intrigued. So we have a lot to talk about. Tree, welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
You look great. You haven't changed a day since last time I saw you 2 years ago.
I've aged 2 years, and my room's probably got more stuff in it.
Yes, I remember you had a lot of plants last time. You had like a whole group of plants behind you that were part of the video. I love the energy. Yeah, you've got a busy room there, but you're a busy woman. You've got so much going on as well. Right. So let's start with psychedelics, right? Excuse me. So what would you say? Let's start with that. So why do you think that now the benefits of psychedelics and people, celebrities, not just celebrities, journalists, prominent people have come out and discussed the benefits or the effects of psychedelics in their lives? Why do you think it's hit mainstream now? And can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I think the reason why it's probably hit more mainstream now is that there's been a lot of trials going on in various educational institutions in the United States, also in the UK, here in the UK. And because of that, and such positive results from trials of psychedelics, helping alleviate depression, end-of-life distress, that it's being heralded now, and enough articles are being written, and enough enough of a spotlight has been written and documented with empirical data around the positive benefits of psychedelics within safe
Obviously.
therapeutic containers effectively. So this is not like doing psychedelics in someone's basement rave,
Right.
like this is done with therapeutic intention. And so I think because of that, that it's now rising up a little bit more in the mainstream, with all of the papers being written. And the reason why it's kind of coming back in the institutions as being studied again is people have pushed for it to be studied again, because there was a ban on
Right.
this thing for a really long time. Especially in the States, the whole war on drugs and Richard Nixon's sort of war on drugs. There was amazing trials and evidence happening, back in the 50s and 60s. And so a lot of this was put on pause for for decades. So hopefully now, we're going to see, well, everyone's saying there's a psychedelic renaissance going on. So I think it's just going to go from strength to strength. And now you see, the legalization of certain psychedelics, especially with psilocybin, being lifted. So you have, places where you can access legally
Right.
some mushrooms to microdose, or to help with your depression, or help with whatever you're traversing. So I think that it's probably only going to hopefully become more and more readily acceptable. I mean, I have friends in like Toronto, Canada. There's a mushroom shop that just opened not too long ago there. And I have friends, they're like, my parents are microdosing now. They just go down to the shroom shop and order their, they haven't done any heroic doses yet, but they're microdosing it. It's helping with their OCD, or it's helping with their midlife depression. And so, yeah, so hopefully this will become more and more standard. But I do think that there needs to be a lot more information and perhaps structure around how people can therapeutically use some more of the therapeutic side. That's why I decided to really immerse myself in a program in transpersonal psychology, because it's one thing having your psychedelic experience, which can completely be a shift of, a person's, problems that they're traversing, depression or end of life distress. But then it's another thing to integrate all of the experiences from the session. And so I think it's really quite important that psychedelic therapists or transpersonal therapists are there also to help people process as well. So, this isn't just like a one-shot pill where you take a pill and you're like sorted out, like it's a process. It's a process, and very much the integration process is really important. And a safe and therapeutic container for these experiences is also really important.
So it's a little bit like ayahuasca, which it's now become another thing that people ayahuasca back then was, it was more the hippie thing to do, where you would go to a very safe environment somewhere in nature. You would have a shaman, you would get ayahuasca, and then you would have that incredible experience, which would help you connect to your higher self, would help you connect to your inner wounded child, whatever it is that you're going on. But how would you say that psychedelics in general differ from more traditional approaches to therapy or to healing?
Well, getting to the ayahuasca experience, I think, yes, there was almost like a renaissance happening where people were having, and it always starts in the underground, right? It's always almost like a counterculture thing. And usually it is a counterculture thing because it's not legal. But a lot of people were, obviously going to, the jungles of South America for decades, experiencing these plant medicines in an indigenous sacred context. And so, then the 90s and the 2000s, it's just gone more and more and more. And there's almost like a tourism aspect towards people going to these retreats. And now you have, ayahuasca coming to, to North America and to Europe. And then it seems as though, any dude with like, an ayahuasca recipe and a soundtrack on their iPod with with like world music soundtrack and an empty warehouse space, and yoga pants can do this whole like experience for people. So there's a lot of controversy around
True.
something like ayahuasca because indigenously it is a sacred medicine to a very select group of people in the Amazon. And so it's really like pretty treacherous territory when it's been appropriated this way, and also quite slightly irresponsible too, because this is a powerful psychedelic experience that can bring up a lot from the deep unconscious, and also extreme altered states of consciousness, where a person can come out of an ayahuasca experience feeling absolutely like a husk of a human, literally like a smoking pothole, and like massively, absolutely shattered from the experience. Yet then there's no follow-up and there's no integration. So I think we have a long way to go when it comes to working with a powerful plant medicine like ayahuasca. I'm of the opinion that it should stay with the shamans, and it's part of the ayahuasqueros, and it's part of their container in order to facilitate. And I think that culturally appropriating and making money off of other people's traditions is really not cool at all. And but having said that, we do have other types of plants up in the northern parts, psilocybin, which mushrooms grow pretty much like loads of different places. And I do think that you can get amazing results therapeutically from the use of psilocybin. And it's also very easy to grow and easy to access, and you can integrate it in a setting that is therapeutic and still quite mindful and of the plant, but it's not really trotting on anyone's sacred traditions in terms of, I mean, there are sacred traditions in Mexico around the mushroom and whatnot, but I think it grows, the liberty caps grow here in the UK. You could sit and have your own mindful session with the mushroom and respect it in that kind of sense. But I do think that you can also incorporate quite a bit of therapeutic things within the context of a session.
How do you work with psychedelics, and with what? And give the viewers a little bit of insight on how you work with people using psychedelics for what is the goal, the aim, just so people understand a little bit, because people I feel that they think exactly what you said before about ayahuasca, that you just take it, you purge, you connect, and then you go home and that's it. But there's a lot, so many more layers to it on a more spiritual level as well. Can you just give people a little bit of a picture of how you work, and maybe if you can share a few anecdotes as well of certain cases with people that you've worked with?
Certainly. So currently, because the legality is it's troublesome at the moment when it comes to psychedelics, and I live in the UK, and so what I've been focusing on is the integration process of people's psychedelics experiences. So because the legality is not there at the moment in terms of facilitating a legal, session with a person, a heroic dose of psilocybin, that, it's against the law. So that's not an area in which I can sit and be a sitter and help facilitate. Of course, a lot of these things do still happen under the radar, but I think as a certified, transpersonal psychologist, you have to approach these things in a legal manner. So obviously, what I do currently at the moment is I help people integrate their psychedelic experiences. So if a person goes and has a psychedelic experience on their own, in their own way, or with another facilitator, that's their thing. I'm not connected legally to that, but they can call me up afterwards and say, right, I had this experience, I'm trying to process it, can I have some sessions? So a big part of my how I sit with people is I help people process the experience that they had. And it's really quite challenging for people to even articulate sometimes their psychedelic experience. So I have had some clients who are very good at articulating everything. And then I saw this, and then and this whole thing about my mother came up, and then, and they're very articulate, but then there are other clients that find it difficult to articulate what they saw or the vision. They get a sense. Because everyone has a different way of expressing. Some people are really visual with their psychedelic experience, but then others find that they have a more like energetic experience. It's more physical, or it's more mental. So I then, with those sort of clients, was a little more challenging. I help draw it out. I help draw out the experience, and it can be through a guided meditation where we go back to the experience and it comes up again, or I help ask the right questions that help the person to recall their experience and process it. So there's it's a lot of talk therapy. It can involve going into like almost like a hypnosis to access the material again. I use art therapy as well. So usually at the end of a session, part of the homework is my client goes off and creates a series of drawings or a painting around the experience to help them integrate the experience. And sometimes it can be one session or several sessions that help the person unpack. And a big part of it too is dream work. So as I'm working with the integration process of a psychedelic experience, I have my client also recording their dreams, doing dream affirmations before they go to sleep, and really working with the dreams, because the dream realm is the same zone as a psychedelic experience, because it's all the unconscious matter that comes up to the surface to look at and review and to experience. So it's the same zone. So when we do dream work, it's also helping to integrate the powerful psychedelic experience that the person's had.
Interesting, because it's the thing is, like, it's like me, for instance, I never remember my dreams, maybe because I block them. I only remember the dreams that are premonitions, if you like, or more psychic dreams. Those I remember because they're more, because all my senses are involved. The other dreams I don't remember. So I understand when people have a psychedelic experience, not remembering, not being able to articulate the experience or what they see. It's the same with the dream, right? Because you said that it's pretty much on the same sort of level or subconscious level that you reach when you're on a psychedelic, right? If I understand correctly. So would you say that, how did you get into that? That's my next question, though, because it's fascinating, because you're also a death doula. You, as I said before, so I think that did death doula come first and then everything else, or is it the other way around?
Well, I think psychedelics would have come first. I became a death doula when I was 40. So like over 10 years ago, I became a death doula. But the psychedelic thing, I did it, back in the 80s and 90s, right? So, didn't we all? So when it comes to psychedelics, of course, dabbling when I was a teenager, and also was a big part of the psychedelic rave scene from 1990 to 1995. So, of course, was experimenting with lots of mind expansive, substances that, were game changers. It was like, I remember, and of course, this is in a recreational setting, so it's not like, in these therapeutic settings, but still, I had, like complete mystical experiences and boundary dissolving oneness experiences, doing LSD and magic mushrooms and even MDMA and ecstasy, like all of these sort of substances where I just felt like, it takes you to this other vantage point. So of course, I've always been a fan of the psychedelics, and also a fan of the psychedelic scene as well. You know, so like as a musician, I've always been into the psychedelic rock scene, and
Right.
you know, and I'm in a lot of you know, the minds behind the psychedelic scene too. As a teenager, was totally into like Timothy Leary and of course Terence McKenna, and of course in the rave scene in the 90s was like, I remember seeing Terrence's like literature at raves and stuff, and on the mushroom, and you know, so been a big fan, and so all over the years, always reading books about, you know, the psychedelic experience, and then in the 2000s, I think what really piqued my interest was reading Daniel Pinchbeck's book, Breaking Open the Head, and I read it once, and I was like, that was so good that I read it the next week again.
Really?
It's all his personal accounts of going around the world trying all different types of
Yeah, true.
substances and plant medicines and entheogens, and his chapter on ayahuasca really piqued my interest. So this would have been probably in the early 2000s, and I thought when I read that and I heard of ayahuasca in the 90s, but I didn't really understand it too much until I read Daniel's book. And then I thought, if I ever get a chance, you know, definitely going to
Yeah.
sit and do ayahuasca, which I did do. And yeah, that's so, you know, there's life before ayahuasca and then there's life after. So
I've heard, because I'm planning to do the whole ayahuasca thing in autumn. So we'll see. I'm ready. I feel ready now. So I'll let you know after my
oh, we should
my.
have, we should do it. We should do a whole episode on the after,
That's a good idea.
and we can.
That's a great idea, actually. Yeah, because I'm down for it now. I'm like, I'm on that spiritual level now that I feel ready. You know, I've done a lot of work on myself. So whatever is to come out, I can deal with it. You know, I'm not afraid of it. I'll deal with it. But I wanted to say, so it's the psychedelic scene, and of course, you know, your own personal experience that led you to the to getting into transpersonal psychology, right? So it is the combination of all of it. And you're an intuitive yourself. You work with tarot, you work with people. I mean, there's just so many facets about you. And I love how you just bring all your knowledge together, everything that you've learned, everything that you've experienced to help people, to heal them, to not just heal them, but more so for them to connect on a much deeper level with their true selves, because that's something that people don't know how to do anymore because we're
Yeah,
so busy. We're in the rat race and stressed and stimulation everywhere. Sorry.
yeah, no, that's so it's these all these are tools. They're therapeutic modules. They're all different tools to get somewhere. And where is it that we're getting? It's getting to the depths of a person, so deep within the unconscious realms. Because, like you just said, we're too busy. We're in a rat race. We're stuck in this like a beta brainwave, which is the fastest brainwave, and we're like high stress, high anxiety, and we don't dream anymore. We're not in a flow state anymore, and we try so hard to get back to that, so we can get back to that state in so many different healing modules. So psychedelics is one. Long time spending time in nature is another one.
Yeah.
Dream work is another one. The tarot is one because it represents the archetypes and what's going on in the deep unconscious and the collective unconscious. So the tarot is a good tool and talking point. And there's countless modules around it. So as a working in transpersonal psychology, you draw upon all of these different tools. And I'm a creative person, so I like to draw upon all these sort of creative and slightly esoteric tools as well, to help a person get there to that material in order to transcend it, to be a more happier and more cohesive person. So you live life in a way where you feel connected and you feel like you have purpose. You feel happy and alive and magical and creative. And you're like, yay, okay, this isn't so bad. Let's do this.
That's
so
true.
Yeah,
and the other
all together, even the death work, you know, like when psychedelics do become legal, I'm definitely going to be a psychedelic death doula. So because psychedelics can help prepare a person end of life.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
Sign me up. Like when it gets legal, yeah, for sure. The concept of death, which is really interesting that you brought it up, because that's something that people are terrified of. I was terrified of death myself until I had my spiritual awakening um, several years ago. And then I was just like, my relationship in quotes with death, or with what, with the other side, has changed completely. So I'm, I don't fear death anymore, because obviously I don't see death as the end, that it's just a dark hole that you enter and then there's nothing there. I see death actually as a rebirth. Like death is just, you're rebirthing somewhere else. You're just going back home. You in a different form, in a different, different vibration. So your experience as a death doula as well, um, must be really fascinating. I mean, especially as you have all this knowledge and you are able to explain or to help someone, whether they're on their deathbed or whether someone has had, let's say, a very grim diagnosis, let's say it's stage 4 cancer, that they know that at some point they're going to end up crossing over. How do you mold everything together and help people, you know, through this process? I hope that makes sense. This question makes sense. I've got all these questions. I'm trying to.
Yeah, no, that
formulate
does
them.
make a lot of sense. Well, currently as a death doula, I help people emotionally, psychologically, practically, as existentially, and sometimes spiritually at end of life. So at this moment, I can't help people psychedelically because it's
Yet,
not
yet.
but it will come, and believe me, that's a really great way of helping a person
I agree.
prepare for death, because it takes away the fear of death. In
Right.
fact, this goes back thousands of years. The ancient Greeks and the Eleusinian mystery cults would have these initiatory rites where they drank this special psychedelic potion called the kykeon, and they would drink this, and it would give them an ego death. And their motto then was, if you die before you die, you won't die when you die. So try to make sense of that conundrum. If
It
you
does
die,
make sense though,
you
because
die.
it's what you said. It's the ego death. It's the
Ego.
ego death. You're right.
So when you take the psychedelic potion and you have this boundary dissolving experience and the death of your egoic construct, you realize that, wow, my consciousness is still here, existing beyond this whole, death of who I was, and it carries on. So in a way, yeah, the ancients understood this, that, there's a way of dying before you die, and therefore you won't be
Yep.
afraid when you die. And but at the moment, I try to guide people this way, in the sober way, obviously, of
You do what you can with what
do what you
you're
can,
able, right?
do what you can, and try to help people become more mindful and conscious in the process. But ego death happens anyway. Like you said, if someone is given a grim prognosis, like, hey, you have 6 months left to live, and I've seen it because I've guided people who, 3 months left to live. These really shocking prognosis, and as soon as you're told that, believe me, part of you dies. Like your
Yes.
ego dies. You go, what? Like, who am I? What am I? All of a sudden, you're thrown into this existential dark night of the soul, and it's like an instant ego death. So people have it anyway when they're end of life are going to die. And let me tell you too, when people are dying, those 3 active days of dying, of the body shutting down, it's a psychedelic experience. Like
Is
it
it?
is, it is psychedelic. It's psychedelic for the person who is going through the process, and
Interesting.
it's psychedelic for those they're holding space or experiencing it as well. Death is huge transformative experience, and it's kind of, you know, shoved in the closet and swept under the rug, and people don't actually talk about what it
Yeah.
feels like, looks like, and is. But I mean, deathbed phenomenon happens. Like, it gets really interesting. It's quite super trippy. I had this one case study client who he was, his girlfriend, young, too young to die, but she died, and he was there on her deathbed and everything. And he said that the experience of her dying, the energy in the room was so intense that he said he felt like he was coming up on MDMA, like on the highest grade, like ecstasy. And he said he was in this heightened state, like
Yeah.
of like euphoric kind of psychedelic bliss for like a week after that
A
experience.
week.
So, yeah,
Wow.
like sustained. And he was like, am I going to come down from this? You know,
Like euphoria, right? Like
euphoria.
nirvana.
Yeah.
Because I've been in a room when two people died, and I agree. I mean, mine didn't last for a week, but I agree. The energy changes. It feels like, look, I've got goosebumps just talking about it. Like, yeah, just because I go back to that, I just go back, I connect back to that energy when that happened, and it's just incredible. It's not this, people think that it's a very depressive, dark. It's actually very uplifting. The whole energy around you, it's like the doors or the windows have opened and fresh air has come in, like a huge gush of fresh air has come in, and you feel light, and everything's light. I can't explain it. You have to experience it. And because I'm a medium too, I could actually see how the soul just, detaches from the body. And also you can see that they're connecting to loved ones on the other side,
Oh, it's
'cause, because usually it's I mean, you know this better, but it's usually the mind that shuts down before the body. It is usually the consciousness that goes before everything else shuts down. And that's the interesting part, because that's when you start feeling that they're on the other side. They've already met their loved ones. But I think that people like you, who you do talk about it, write books about it, you've been to TEDx, and you want to share this what death really is and how it feels and how you can come to terms with it, especially when you're on your deathbed, because that's when most people start feeling bad, right? They have regrets and guilt, and that's the worst part, because you're transitioning, you're crossing over, but you realize that you weren't the best person in your lifetime, that you've made mistakes. And I feel that that's probably what most people find hard to deal with.
That's it. That's the dark night of the soul,
The dark
because
night of
I
the
think
soul.
people live their whole life punching down their shit, their whole life.
Yes.
And they burn their bridges and they do their thing. They hold their grudges. They have their resentments. And then it's at, their final days where the coin drops and they think, they have the regrets. I wish I
Right.
more time with my brother. I wish I had said sorry to so and so. I wish I hadn't worked so much and neglected time with my kids, like, so that's when all the regrets come out. But also it's what all the trauma comes out. Like, so when
True.
I've guided people through the emotional terrain, it's like a lot of it's to do with the past. It's like the son that they never called, and like the estranged son. And it's about like the trauma that they didn't deal with when they were in their 30s or 40s, and now it's all coming up for review. So it's like people have, it's a natural process. I see it with everyone, from atheists to people who have like magical cosmologies. So you know what I mean? It's just part of
Yeah.
it. Something makes the past come up really present, really, really present. So, when people say like they push things away, I'm sorry to say, it will come up. When people say that like they don't want to deal with something, like they hide something in a box. Well, it's like within them, it's like, you can't hide from it because it will come up in your final days. I'm sorry to say, but this is why death and really embracing it in a way that it's reality and it's a natural part of life. It makes you live better because you clean up your house as you go. You live the best life that you can as you go. Every single thing and interaction you do is like, it's important. It's important. And so you live a life of no regrets. You mend and heal bridges. You don't have grudges or resentments. You just, life's too short. People say that life's too short. It's so true.
It is too short, though. It's true.
I know. And there's something that feels really good to tell someone, look, I'm sorry, I messed up. People don't do it because they have so much pride. But if you do that, you feel so relieved. Watch it. Do it. I invite any of you listening, like, do it. Someone that you have a grudge against. Say, relieve yourself of that. Watch how it shifts you and releases you, and it makes you happier. Because when you hold this stuff in you, it doesn't do you any good. And it will come up for review for you at end of life anyway.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna go through it anyway. So I mean, you might as well. And also, when you do it, you make room. When you keep things like that, it's basically you're just hoarding. You're hoarding bad energy. You're hoarding stuff. So you need to make room. Make room. Go out there.
Room. I also tell people, especially students that I'm guiding, is when someone comes to your mind, like just out of nowhere, reach out to them.
Yeah, I agree.
Like sometimes we just think that these things, our thoughts just come into our mind, and we don't. If something just drops into your mind, like your auntie,
right?
And oh, why am I thinking of her out of nowhere?
Because your auntie's thinking of you. So maybe she is connecting with you on a, energetic, spiritual level. So maybe this is your cue to call your auntie. So basically, guys, don't hold grudges. Don't hold grudges. You're not going to lead a happier, calmer life if you hold grudges or if you have regrets. If you don't want to have regrets, you know what? You've made a mistake. Go back, apologize, fix it, move on. That's 100%. It. Because you're right. You're going to deal with it anyways.
It's true. And it's funny too, because I have talked to people in group settings before and about death and, sort of death positive events and whatnot. And, some people have this sentiment of like, and I think it's, how society sees it. Like, I want to live a life with no regrets. So I want to, it's all materialistic. It's like, I had so many beautiful girlfriends, I had so many hot girlfriends, and, I got to date a supermodel or something, or like the no regrets, or like I got to drive a Ferrari, or, it's like sometimes people's ideas of no regrets is like living like this, like bombastic sort of material life. But you know what? When you get to the end, all of that stuff becomes so obsolete and doesn't matter. What I find in guiding people end of life, what really matters at the end of life, it's so simple. And it's the interpersonal relationships in your life. You realize that this life was all about the relationships that you had with the people in your life. And also things like the bird on the windowsill becomes absolutely the most important thing in the day. And it's not,
That's true.
It's absolutely not the material stuff. So people shift their consciousness too when they're told that, they're going to die soon. Other things become important, and they realize that those things when they were younger that they thought were the no regrets, they're not part of the list.
I agree. And that's why maybe everyone should leave their life as if they're dying tomorrow, because then you're going to lead a much better life, because you're going to put ego aside, and you're going to be a much better person, and you're going to make less mistakes or less things that you're going to have regret about. And speaking of making your life better, let's talk about your book and the spells and the rituals, because this is fascinating. Okay. So let's start with, I know you're pagan and you're a witch. What did all this? What got you into this? How long have you been doing this? Just give us a little bit of a background.
So I've always identified as a witch since I was a teenager in the 1980s. And I think I started identifying with that title because of what I felt drawn towards. So I've always had a deep, like, drawn very deeply to nature and to the natural world and the power of nature. And that is a big part of a magical cosmology.
Mm-hmm.
Also, from mystical and paranormal experiences that I've had growing up, specifically around precognition and mediumship and all of these, these things that are part of that world. So as a teenager, I sought to explore that a little bit more. And because it was like the 80s, like 1987, 1986, 87, 88, I would find myself in the library because this was like pre-internet. So I would take out as many books as I could on, the esoteric subjects from, the tarot to astral projection, astrology and hermeticism. And I just was very interested in the long history of a magical cosmology, and specifically also when it comes to being a witch, my role as a woman with, these sort of, abilities, perhaps, which was, I see it as like healing, being a healer. I think the witch is just like an ancient word for a therapist, really, because
I
witches.
know, but it's got a bad connotation to it because of stupid Hollywood and film entertainment industry, etc. But it's interesting. So, what inspired you to create this book? Because it is 300, it's literally one spell a day. And you can find everything in that in your book, everything from new moon spells, how to improve your life, how to be better at work. There's so many things. So, what inspired you?
I think what inspired me was the fact that people love ritual, and we do rituals even when we are not aware that we're doing rituals. Human beings are ritualistic creatures, and we have been for thousands of years. People don't even know they're doing rituals, like I said, like waking up in the morning, making a cup of coffee, drinking the coffee, then getting involved in a task. I mean, these are all rituals. So I wanted to create something that was ritual based, that people could have a moment to themselves and really move into a self-care practice, have a moment to be able to sit with themselves and have a conversation with the universe, to bring something into their life, to create something and bring it in. So that's why I wanted to create that, so people could feel like they have that process. I wanted to also create these spells to make the mundane more magical, because there are things that you have, tools within your house that can be used in ritual, from some of the herbs in your pantry to your mobile phone being used as a tool as well. So I wanted to also make it really accessible and creative and fun, and make it just feel like the everyday mundane can have a moment of magic. And what I mean by a moment of magic, it is, like I said, literally a conversation between you and the universe, like really creating a process, a feedback loop. And that's what spellcasting is. It is effectively, through the power of intention, creating this, this casting of this intention outwards in order to bring something, manifest something. I don't really
You're
like
manifesting, but you're just doing it, instead of doing it in a meditative state or in a state where you change your, you just raise your vibration to meet the vibration around you, to attract what it is that you want. You just do it in a more ritualistic way, using the elements, using whatever you have in nature, whatever is provided to you by nature. So this is interesting. So did you come up with these spells, or are these spells that have been around for a long time, or some of them spells that you use, that you've come up with?
Yeah, so I effectively all 365 spells I've bespoke, like created
All
them.
right.
I,
Mhm.
I use a lot of different components. For example, if there's a spell for uh, self-love and self-compassion, I'll use a herb that has a long history of being used for love, like a
Right.
basil leaf. So a lot of, especially with the herb magic and the herb work that I use in the spell ingredients, they have long history of being connected to spells like for hundreds and hundreds of years. But effectively, I've created all 365 spells using loads of variety of things, from also the tarot and
Yeah.
even technology. So it's all worked in there. Yeah, it took a while to get them all crafted and to
I'm
get.
sure. I mean, it's a big book. This is like, but I love it. And it's so, I love that the whole aesthetic of the book, you guys. Like, order it. Go order it. Everything's gonna be linked down below, because also the way, I mean, the way it's, the aesthetic of it, the way it's done, the way it's written, it's just, I absolutely love it. I told you, as soon as
Oh,
it was sent to me, I was like, okay. And I was just, for 3 hours, I was just going through it, and I really, really enjoyed it. How have these practices influenced your own spiritual journey
that's a
and
good.
understanding the world around you?
So sitting and writing the book has like has made me
Obviously.
completely in it. You know what I mean? Like, so I've been doing
Yeah.
this kind of stuff for a long time, since I was a teenager. But then to have to sit with it and like create 365 of them, and like and really sit with the process, it's like it's almost like deep in my own practice of it. But it's also
Mm,
expanded it because I really wanted to use technology as a tool and create text spells for people, because
I like that. I
anything
like
can be
that.
a tool. Yeah, and your mobile phone could be a tool. So this is, helped me be creative and you know, ingenuity had to be part of this too, and that's been really good. And I see like a magical cosmology through a different lens now as well.
Mm,
We're using tech for spell casting or for conversation with the universe has just been super mind blowing now. And I just wanted to say to anyone out there listening, like the word spells, it sounds like people get
it does.
and they also think like, is this Harry Potter? This is hocus pocus, like crap. You know what I mean? Like it's deeper than that. Like we
Yeah.
are constantly casting spells and we don't even know it. If we tell someone to F off, for example, it's like your
Right.
words have casted, it's put it out there. The person feels that charge of those words.
That's so true.
Everything we say is like we're casting spells through our words. But not
True.
only that, our intention. And it was my intention perhaps to say F off to someone. That's intention, and it's coming out, casting onto them. It's affected change. It's made an energy in that
It's
person,
so true.
and they probably are going to send it right back. That's the law of contagion. These are magical laws at practice. You know how this works on a day to day. So we're all doing this all the time. So the word spell, I just want to break it down a little bit because people just think, oh,
Yeah.
witchcraft, Harry Potter, this is, but there's science behind it too, because with intention, uh, we are doing intention all the time as well without even knowing it. You're creating an intention. I'm going to the gym. I'm going to get a six pack. And so it starts there with the spark of intention. And then an action proceeds. What is the action? It's a ritual. What is the ritual? You get up, I put my gym clothes on, I fill my water bottle. I walk down the street and I go onto these machines and I do this ritual. But where did it start?
That's a good
It
point.
started with the intention. And then you went and did the ritual. And then what happens? Something manifests. It's the six pack. So,
Never for me though, Tree. Never for me. I'm not six pack. I'm still waiting to manifest that six pack, but
and that's just one example. But we're constantly in this, this feedback loop of intention and ritual. And the word intention, it's actually like a Latin word, entender, and it means, it literally is two words. It means stretching and purpose. And
Mm.
it's, so this is our consciousness stretching out, casting, stretching towards a purpose, towards a goal. So, we do it physically, like I just said with the gym, but you can do it as well in a more cosmic way too, where you want something to come into your life.
The law of
And
attraction. It is the law of attraction. You attract what it is that you want to create, manifest, right? So you do it the same well through a spell. And I'm putting it in quotes so people don't think that this is, as you said, hocus pocus, Harry Potter, whatever. Because you'll see, like, once you get, when I edit this video, anyways, I'm going to put some excerpts in. I'm going to put some so people just understand what we mean when we're talking about spells. Which brings me to my final question: tips for beginners. So anyone, like, let's say people just because through this conversation, or people that start following you, they're interested in becoming a witch themselves, they're interested in spells, etc. Where do they begin?
I think it's really important to begin with a magical cosmology as a foundation. And a really good way of doing that is just looking at the origins of the universe. 13.8 billion years ago, a single point of heat and light came out of the void and exploded. And from that point of explosion, coming out of nothing, we have the Milky Way, we have all of the stars, and we have our solar system, we have planet Earth, we have our bodies, we are here, we have our mobile phones, and we have this conversation right now because something happened 13.8 billion years ago.
Good.
And this was the big bang, and science supports that. Yes, that happened. But isn't that extraordinary that that happened? That was the first act of magic. So if that's possible, if that was possible 13.8 billion years ago, then pretty much anything is kind of possible if you really put your intention towards it or mind to it. Now, it may take a while to see results, but I'm of the opinion of, like, why the hell not try? Because if that's possible, that we're here out of nothing, then surely our consciousness has the power of creation as well to affect change and bring that through. So I guess my guidance would be, like, go back to the origins and trust that process, and then start to realize that you yourself are pretty amazing, and you are magic, you are creation, you are the source that came out of, we're part of it. So right. We have great potential. I really believe that we have great potential in creating an amazing life for ourselves. So, people hold back and they go, well, I don't think I can spell cast, or I put intentions towards something coming into my life because it's not really backed by science. And it's like, well, don't let science hold you back from trying. Maybe the science will catch up later, and say, actually, there are, neurological, proof that people are able to make and change their minds, which they can do. We have proof of that.
I mean, there are now more and more scientific facts and, studies about that. So, I mean, it is coming out.
It is, usually the mystics get there first and the science kind of catches up. And
that's true.
Provides the data behind it. But hey, just, explore. You're not hurting anyone. I want to define this too, because people hear spells and they get freaked out, or they hear witch, they get freaked out. So the word witch is from the Old English wicke, which means wise ones. So witches were literally the wise ones, the healers of the community that people came to, and they had all the knowledge of the herbs and of healing modules and going into the other zones of consciousness. So witches aren't scary. They're just wise ones. But there is magical laws, of cause and effect. And science even shows there's cause and effect behind everything we do as well. Mm-hmm. Now, the best way to approach a magical cosmology as well, or any spell casting, is to harm no one. So doing your intentions to harm no one. You don't want to control or manipulate or hurt any other people in the process. And that's really important. But a lot of people get very tempted to do that, to
Yes.
take revenge. And, unfortunately, humans can be really nasty this way. But
Yeah.
be careful, and this stuff is really,
It's
not
powerful. It's
it's not
powerful.
to be taken lightly. I mean, intention is powerful. So
And
you want
believe in its
good.
power.
Yeah.
Believe in its power, because people are, I think most people are afraid of spell casting because they're like, oh my God, if I do, if I get involved in this, or if I start casting spells, they're afraid that something bad's going to happen to them. But that's more this older, more old-fashioned thinking, I want to say, like this more ignorant type of thinking, because of the way that witchcraft, witches, spellcasting has been depicted and represented in literature, in
There were
movies.
the witch trials. Hey,
The witch
up to 80,000
island.
people were murdered for acts of witchcraft. And to be honest, about 80% of them were women, and they were women over 40. So it was all the perimenopausal and menopausal older women who had some experience. And so we are still in the hangover of the witch trials, and it's what's called
Mhm.
doing. And so it's seen through a bad lens because there were manifestos, people were murdered for it. And so we still have this like reputation of that we're evil, or we're terrible people and whatnot. But effectively, witchcraft and witches it's shamanism. It's shamanism. It's European shamanism. So people look at shamanism in indigenous cultures and in North America and in the United States and Canada, and people are like, oh, like we support them or we care about them. But hey, witchcraft in in Europe is basically European shamanism, but it's not seen in the same light. It's seen as evil and from
Yeah.
hell and from Satan. But I think that's slowly changing because we've been painted with a bad brush. It's actually deeply misogynist. It's deeply,
Yeah.
is predominantly against women. So that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation. That's true. But yeah, but I'm glad, because people are becoming even more, they're open to spirituality. They want to connect more with their own spiritual beings around them. So I see that myself working with clients as well, how people are becoming more and more in tune with the cosmos and the universe and what's going on around them. So there is still hope. There's still hope that people will that what we're doing, everything that we're working on, everything that we're teaching, everything that we're sharing with people, that it will, this is my dream, become mainstream. And mainstream is a bad word, but because mainstream is usually what society accepts and
Yes.
adopts. So that's why my dream is everything that we're doing, and we put ourselves out there, is that it becomes mainstream and people change, change, and there's acceptance and love and unity, and the collective generally just starts vibrating on a very different bloody frequency. It's about time. About time.
Totally. That's 100%. And hey, it's what is it that we're doing? We're trying to affect healing and help. So you know
Yes.
what I mean? It's all coming from the right place. It's for the higher good of all people to feel like healed and feel happier and living better lives and more altruistic and more caring. So I mean, it's for a collectively good pursuit. You know what I mean?
Also, what else are you doing before we go? What are you up to now? Do you have any courses, anything that people might be interested in taking, for instance, that might help
Yes.
them?
So I have some courses coming up in when the summer goes away, because everyone's having a holiday now. Woo!
Yeah.
So when the autumn comes around, so I've got a course with the the London College of Psychic Studies.
Ooh,
Be
interesting.
rolling out a course with them, which will be online. So you can be anywhere in the world and take this course. And it's on dreaming. So it's going to be immersive course on dreaming, getting more into the practice of dreaming. Of course, it's a psychic college, so there's going to be an emphasis on precognition, precognitive dreams, and working with your dreams as a, as a clairvoyant or a psychic medium. So that I'm excited about that. That's in the autumn months. And then in January, when the new year rolls around, I have my 6-week course on lucid dreaming. And that course is all coming awake in the dreams and creating, to achieve lucidity within the dream where you're completely awake and present and able to co-create within the dream itself. So that's coming up in the new year as well.
Thank you so much, Tree, for coming on today.
You. I mean, it would be a pleasure to come back again another time, or even when after you've partaken ayahuasca, we could have like chat about that. That would be amazing too. Hey?
I'll reach out to you before I do it, like a day, because I'll need a little bit of a, I'll need you to sort of like give me a little bit of a pep talk. Although I feel fully ready for it, and then after, for sure, that's going to be so interesting to share.
That'll be a really amazing.
Yes, I can't wait. I can't wait. Thank you so much, Tree, for joining us. Everyone, again, a reminder that if you want to follow Tree, if you want to purchase her books, if you want to see what she's up to right now, everything is linked down below, and you can check out her website because everything is on her website. Anyways, you can follow her on social media and she'll be back. So this was fantastic.
It was so nice to chat and hang out.